You're listening to Cottontail's podcast, part of the Silicon Valley Black Project, which produced the documentary film A Place at the Table about the Black pioneers of Silicon Valley. A Place at the Table can be viewed for rent on Vimeo.com on demand /A Place at the Table STEM. Through Cottontail's podcast, the Silicon Valley Black Project will continue to recognize the contributions made by African Americans. We will be featuring African American professionals, technologists in the fields of engineering, administration, and entrepreneurial pursuits from the past and present. Today, we're talking to Dr. Edward Blakely. He has served in different capacities under several presidential administrations, guiding government's policy in urban planning. Well, now, tell me, what is your official title, Mr. Blakely?
Gee, I have several. One, I'm still a professor emeritus, University of California.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I'm a lawyer.
Okay.
Barrister, as they call us in Australia. Mm-hmm. And three, I'm an urban planner. And four, I'm a broadcaster.
Right.
Okay, I have two. One of them is a strictly news show.
Okay.
It's called U.S. of Ed. And my second one is a weekly radio show in Sydney, Australia. We have between 30 and 50,000 listeners. It's a regional show. And then I have an international radio program called Ed Talk Radio. I'm in the media, and we were talking last night about what we can do. Mm-hmm. And what we can do is the thing we're doing, which you guys were doing yesterday, sharing.
Yes.
Keeping up the fight.
Yes.
Now, the problem is our grandchildren don't know the fight, and if we don't transmit it to them, it's not going to go on.
Exactly, because we sheltered them, because we wanted them to focus on their careers, their life, and to be able to become what we couldn't in our time. And so why go back and deal with all that negativity? Let's push our kids forward.
And the struggle is part of the process, you know? Mm-hmm. Every day you got to get up, stretch your legs. Right. That's part of the process. Your body's not going to move unless the legs move.
Right.
So I think we're in a situation of kind of a bitter victory. We won the war, but lost the battle. Mm. And the battle was for integrity, for decency, and for self-sufficiency. Okay, Kathy, I grew up in San Bernardino in a close-knit family, close-knit neighborhood. With aspirations. We were working poor people, but we had a very strong community, highly motivated. Everyone talked about when they're going to go to college, not whether, and what we can contribute. So we did it. We almost all went to the University of California at Riverside or San Bernardino State, or one of the nearby universities. And in my case, I was lucky enough to end up at the University of California at Berkeley for my master's degree, and then UCLA for my doctoral degree. And I coached college and professional football while I was a doctoral student. Because I played football, and that game, for me, was a way out. And so I worked in the war on poverty, and eventually I got a call from the White House saying, could I come and join Mr. Richard Nixon? And our family, the Carter, my mother's side, were very tight Republicans. And Randolph Carter went to the Whittier University with Richard Milhous Nixon. And as a result, Nixon said, I want to get rid of these Harvard guys and get some real people in the White House. And I was one of the people. And this was a stroke of luck. You know, in the old days, our type families, if you said Los Angeles, you named the block or the area, everybody knew that was such and such a family. And that was the way it was here.
Mm-hmm.
So I got some experience in the White House and the State Department, had my doctor's degree, and finally said, I'm not going to run around the world with a family. I got into urban planning because when I got out of the Air Force, I wanted to go around the world and see the world. And I ended up in Italy, and some people asked me to help replan their World War II bombed out village. And I said, I don't know anything about that. Well, the guy that went before me told this people I knew all about it. Because I was regaling them stories of San Bernardino and how we were fixing up the city and, the black neighborhoods and the like. And the people said, okay, we know you know. We're going to call you Peace Corps. You fix our city. And with the help of the people who were there, most of whom were working with me were Italians who worked in New York and retired on Social Security back to Italy. Where $100 a month was like $10,000 a month. And they were bored. And they said, you act like you're the boss, we will be the workers. And we rebuilt the city, and it's still rebuilt today the way we did it. They've added a new road. But that experience felt so good because I was doing something physical and socially good. And that's what my life has been.
Yes.
That went to the University of Pittsburgh and taught there for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And the president of the university said, this university is not good enough for you. Where do you want to go? I said, Berkeley. Why not? And he said, we'll get you there. And I ended up at Berkeley and served almost 30 years at Berkeley, University of California, as a professor of urban planning. And those people who want to read me, most of my books are about social inclusion in space, race, and economics. And I've written 4 prize-winning books on that topic, bestsellers, New York Times, all that kind of stuff, by just being me. Just writing the story.
And doing things that you're really, really interested in, huh?
Yes. When the earthquake hit Oakland, I helped rebuild the city.
Fantastic.
When the fire came, I helped rebuild the city. And on and on. Came to Los Angeles when the riots were going on. And this guy, Bill Clinton, said, this guy might have something to offer. Next thing I knew, I was working with Bill Clinton, and then subsequently with other presidents all the way to Obama. But even one Republican, and that was young Bush, asked me to come down to New Orleans because he knew I knew how to build cities and rebuild that city. And when that was finished, I decided after 9/11, it is time to explore the rest of the world. My wife is Australian, and she said, look, I love the United States. I love living here in New York. And I thought Giuliani was great. He was a good mayor. I want everybody to hear that. He was a good mayor. He took a wrong turn someplace. But my first boss, Richard Nixon, did it too.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean they didn't do some good. Remember, Richard Nixon brought in the Environmental Protection Agency. He was the first one, I think, to believe in health care.
Yes, he did. He was.
Richard Nixon.
And he also established affirmative action. So
the affirmative action.
Yeah.
And I was one of the first ones in his affirmative action programs. So some good comes from different kinds of people. And I'm not going to say that carried forward to one of the people who's running for president these days. But I got to know Joe Biden and people like that. So I planned cities. New Orleans, Oakland, pieces of New York, even Moscow. And now in Sydney, Australia. So I like building better places for people of all kinds, all incomes, all races, and making a stronger place. And that's what my books are about. That's what I'm about, and I'm still doing it at 85 years old.
Yes, indeed, and you are. I saw you on the Point of View rebuilding Venice. Can you
Yes.
tell me about that experience? What was that like?
Well, I'm still working with Venice. This is Venice, Italy, which, as you know, is suffering from the fact that the marshes are drying up, which means the city starts to sink.
Right.
The city's actually floating on some old marshes. And when they brought in those big steamships, the steamships actually pushed the water down so tight that the marshes went away. And if you go to Venice, most of the first floors aren't usable anymore.
Oh.
Because the water's taken over. So I was brought in to help them, as I did in New Orleans, revitalize. Because they're both basically under the water. And they're supported by the water in ways. So I use the skills I learned in New Orleans to help save Venice. And that's a NOVA presentation, a documentary that I think is up for an award. So my lifeblood, the reason I get up in the morning is to make better places. And now I'm working with the Aboriginal people in Australia and the marginally incomes to make neighborhoods that are good neighborhoods. Mixed income, good housing, not big high rises where people don't know one another, and in the end are destructive. So I've been very fortunate in doing what I know, what I love, and what I can do. And that keeps me the same age. You know, an age when you're having fun. I don't think about how old I am. I think of how much more I can do.
Isn't that amazing? That's wonderful to hear, because I feel exactly the same way. And we just have, thank God we have time, that we can do more.
Every minute is time we can use, like we're doing now.
Exactly.
And this technology can be used for evil, as we know, or for good.
Exactly.
Now, as I said, I have a radio show and I have a worldwide platform for radio programs that I put across the world. I have about 5,000 listeners on my worldwide broadcast. And in Sydney, I have between 30 and 50,000 people who listen every week. And that is a commentary on U.S. politics. Because I want Australians to understand the U.S. is not like Australia. We have a different kind of democracy, and they need to understand it and not just say, oh my God. You know, we have to educate the world and be educated by the world too. I've been in 92 countries, I think, mostly working, not vacationing. I took my brother to Venice to show him the work we were doing there and the walking and so forth. And I think he came away feeling, wow. You know, that kind of feeling you get when you know you're seeing something you've never seen and you experience something that's brand new. We didn't go for the food, but we had great food. We went there to see how this city is rebuilding itself.
How long were you in Venice altogether?
3 weeks.
What's going on in Germany?
Oh, well, Germany is Germany, you know. There you don't go up very high and not down very low. But they're suffering from COVID. Stores have been closed for a long time. And their birth rate is really in the tank. So they've got some big problems. And the Nazis are on the rise again.
You're saying that they were affected by COVID. How many parts of the country were affected negatively by COVID?
Mostly the Northeast, where we were, Saxony. The South wasn't as badly affected. But the Northeast in that area is their trading area, Hamburg, Leipzig, and so on, and Berlin. So that's a big hit for their economy. That's the industrial heart. It's like our Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Warren could see that. And we learned, we had a conference there. I think we had 15 people there and about 5 online, about 20 economists from around the world, talking about how COVID's affected their cities. And each place is doing something different. Some are going back to the old days and their old strategies, like Manchester is really relying on the fact that it's a communication center and building on that. Where the guy from New Delhi said they're going to make an environmental economy. They're going to employ people to redo the environment of India. A national strategy. It's a Biden program, similar, but we're using a whole lot of high-flung, new technologies. They're using the old way, redigging those canals and stuff like that, because the poor people there know how to do that. It'll employ them, and they'll feel good about what they're doing. So we'll see in the next year or two how that's working out, and maybe we'll have a conference there. But we meet every year. We have 20 people, and we produce a book on our findings. So that keeps my mind going. And I was on the board with the American Planning Society, but now I'm doing the international stuff because I'm overseas.
I see. Much more convenient for you.
Yes, more convenient.
Tell me this, since you have looked at so many cities, you can make the comparison that many people can't, and that is, how is technology, is it not being used well?
Well, clearly everything's a mixed bag. The cities that have used technology well are mostly the Scandinavian countries, like Sweden and Denmark and so on, where they've used these technologies to move the automobile out of the center of their economy. So they have little shuttle buses. Some of them run on their own where there's a track. They haven't experimented too much with off-track unmanned vehicles, but on-track and small guided vehicles and these pathways that they had in the old days that were just pathways. Now you can get a little shuttle that takes you to your home from the train. And so they're using the technology to make friendlier, smarter, and adapting place and people to a better, walkable, smoother environment. We are using it in ways, Australia and the United States, to span distances like we're doing now. Most of Europe is very small. San Bernardino County is bigger than most European countries. So we are actually lowering the scale. You can talk to your grandchildren now from New York here in California, So we're using technologies in that way, but we are not using the technologies to make very many improvements. We're using them to extend what we're doing rather than changing what we're doing. And I think we're going to have to do that because we just can't go on like this. I see people driving around here at $6 a gallon. That makes everybody poor.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And one person per vehicle, and people are complaining about the price of gas. She should be complaining about the way their cities are designed.
Exactly.
It's because you would not be doing this in the European city. You use your car once a week. I live in Sydney, Australia. I don't have a car.
So
all public transportation.
I see. And Sydney is a fairly large city, is it not?
6 million people.
Oh my goodness, it's huge.
It's a big city. It's physically it's about, I say, half the size of Los Angeles. But we've got trains running everywhere. Remember the old T system?
Yes.
We're putting it back.
Okay. Well,
so people can get out of their cars. There's still a lot of car driving, but at least we're building a system that moves away from the car. I think that's a principle with these new technologies, because I see people doing what we're doing on a train. And more people are working from home. My daughters, both of them, work for home 2 or 3 days a week. That takes the cars off the highway. But also, I see fathers with their kids in the parks. if you have two parents for the, let's say, the first 12 to 14 years, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Parents who are guiding and nurturing.
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, people do make it without that, but they're very few.
Yes.
And then the prop doesn't have to be just the parents, the grandparents, and the cousins, and uncles, and aunts. I'm 10,000 miles from that.
So you built your family.
I built my family, and we are a good nuclear family, but a community family. Our neighbors come over. We go over their house. The park's across the street. You know, I don't have to worry about when the kids are in the park. Clearly, I'm there with them. But some other parent will come up and say, no, don't touch that bush. Because we got snakes and stuff there, you know? Somehow, we're using this technology to be more alone than more together. I think if we can get through this Trump business and settle down, people will know that game's over, and they'll start playing the real game. And that is building communities, building neighborhoods. It's not building big buildings. It's not building big anything. It's building clear, clean, smart places.
Have your daughters followed you in your footsteps?
Yes, they both have PhDs.
In what areas?
My oldest daughter lives in Richmond, Virginia, and she runs her own consulting business for nonprofits. And she does, she's the number cruncher. Mm-hmm. And all the nonprofits have to have evaluations. So she's big in evaluation science and helps them understand how to evaluate their products and services, including bringing in the ethnic and cultural issues. Mm-hmm. Because what a Native American wants out of a summer kids camp program is different than some white people living in Connecticut.
That's true.
So in that way, I think she's copied her dad. You make the thing that fits the people and the place. You don't impose some strategy and technology on the people in place. Uh-huh. Now, my other daughter is a neuroscientist, and her husband is a physiologist. He has a huge business, just started, with, I think there are 8 doctors, orthopedic surgeons, who do knees and legs and arms and necks and shoulders, but they have to have some therapy before they do that. You just go walk in and get an operation. They make you do some exercises and stuff, check your weight, blood pressure. So he does that. And then when you come out, you got 6 weeks, sometimes a year or 2 of therapy. So he does the front and back ends, and the surgeons do the cutting, and he collects the bills, pays everybody, and the like. So he's a manager.
I see.
Now, he doesn't do very much of the physio. He teaches his staff and teaches others. My daughter, as a neuroscientist, is doing a lot of restructuring of healthcare systems. She's in Australia.
Australia, okay.
Yeah. We went there, not together, but at the same time, because she's doing her doctorate in Australia. We went to Sydney, she went to Melbourne. And when she finished her doctorate, she came up to see us. Her husband found a job near us, and make a long story short, they've been there 10 years.
Okay.
And I love it because I see those little kids. They tell me, Pops, you used to be smart.
These are your grandchildren?
Yeah, you know how they are.
Yes.
Grandchildren have, in the old days, we were, what was the word? Be quiet, stay away.
Exactly. Children should be seen and not heard.
Seen and not heard. If you come around my kids, they'll come up to you. Miss Kathy, what do you do? I'm so bold, but that's so good. It's getting a sense of self.
Yes.
And since they're mixed, my daughter's husband is an Aussie, and people, they got the curly hair and stuff. People say, what are you? I'm American and Australian. That's what I am.
Have they been to America?
Not yet.
I wonder what the reaction will be to this place.
We're going to take the train across the country. That's my plan. My wife doesn't like that idea, but I think at their ages, 8 and 5, that makes a huge impression on you. I remember when we went to Missouri at the same age. I still remember that trip. So I think it'll be a good thing, and we'll be together for a few days. And if the trains run better than the European trains.
Let me warn you right away, they do not. You will be sorely disappointed with the trains here in the United States. It's a travesty what they've allowed to happen to our train system.
I think for just a couple of days it'll be all right, and they're little, so a little inconvenience won't hurt them. When we went to Missouri, blacks had to be in the back of the bus.
Right.
And so some white people, since we had to be in the back of the bus, got their newspapers together and stuff and put them on the floor and shawls and made beds for my brother and myself.
Oh, nice.
And found a seat for my father. Since we didn't know what was going on, and we found out later, we said, that kind of kindness is going to change the world. And it has,
Yes.
And that's what America has to get back to it. What it was. You can't seek a future if you don't know your past.
That's true. There's another thing that I believe, just from my travels and whatnot. The kindness is there. It hasn't left us at all. It's right there at the surface, it's a very tolerant country. You can see it in your own in your own family. You have
place. Even when I went on the walk this morning, good morning, sir. How are you?
Yes.
We don't get that in Australia. People walk right past you. We are the richest, most powerful nation in the world.
And what I can't understand is why we're letting the tail wag the dog right now.
Because the media wants that. It gets eyeballs.
Yes. Tell me, what did you think of, or have you been asked to work with the people in Maui?
Our institution will probably be sending a group to Maui, but the University of California has to work with the University of Hawaii. We can't come in to their territory without an invitation.
I see. Have you been invited yet?
I think some of the high-level scientists, those in the recovery space, atmospheric scientists and so forth, they're world-renowned, and they are there now. We do something in Hawaii, but let's take care of California.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. So what are you taking care of in California right now?
Right now, the big problem now with all this heat is fire suppression. And we're going back to the Native American ways. They didn't have big fires because they knew how to burn the brush.
Right.
It's the brush that causes the big fire. So you have to take that brush out. So we're using some of those technologies, showing people in the communities how to clean up their own community to prevent big fires. Knowledge is important, but disseminating that knowledge is even more important, and that's where this kind of technology can come in for good, not for evil. So we'll be using a lot of this kind of technology.
Earlier on, you told me that you played football. I was surprised. Mm-hmm. What do you think you took away from those times when you played football?
The most important thing is team. There is no star. It's a team. And I learned the lessons of team. And when I went in the Air Force, the same thing. That plane's not getting off the ground unless the team helps it get off the ground. You may be the officer, but you are only an important, but not the only cog in that teamwork system. And in the family, our family, we still work as a team. There was no black quarterback in the University of California ever on any of the 5 schools. And when I went to UC Riverside, Coach Saline said, you are going to be the quarterback. I don't care what your color is, and you're going to win. And goddamn, we won. And that's what we should get. A chance to win.
Yes.
Not a chance to sit down and watch.
That's it. That is it.
No money buys you freedom. It helps you stand for freedom, but it doesn't buy it.
It's a tool like your intelligence or your looks. Those are tools.
Those are tools.
Those are things that will give you an advantage possibly, but it's not the be-all and was-all of what you need to do if you intend to be a viable, living individual who has the freedom to do as they choose on this planet. So
we have to do that. We have to be the role model for America. We can't wait for them to give us a model.
No. Oh, well, their model is so muddled up.
It's muddled up. It's muddled up. It's got nothing in it. Doesn't have truth in it. When you lose the truth, you got nothing. Deal with yourself. You can't deal with anybody else.
You got it. Speaking about dealing with yourself, tell me again about your shows and your books and those awards that you've gotten over the years.
Well, the important thing is you go on Google, Ed Talk Radio, all one word, .com.
Mm-hmm.
That's my international show. If you want to hear my local broadcasts, that's U.S., like United States, U.S. of Ed.
Okay, .com.
U.S. of Ed. I think you just put that in, and you'll find, maybe it is usofed.com, but if you just put in U.S. of Ed, it'll lead you to that radio station. Okay? I have three important books. The first is Fortress America, Gated Communities in the United States, and the social disadvantages they create. Okay?
Okay.
All right. And that's a New York Times bestseller.
Wow. Okay.
Planning Local Economic Development is a leading book on economic development for the disadvantaged in the world. It's, again, #1 seller.
Mm-hmm.
Separate Societies is the book that Clinton fashioned our current U.S. welfare program from.
All right.
And the last one I want to mention is My Storm, which is a contemporary story of how I changed New Orleans and rebuilt it.
Wow.
I've written 22 books, all on social, economic issues with space. Okay? And so there's space in all my books, and how you use the social economy to make a better space is my thesis. You don't run away from it. You use it as a tool. You build better places. Don't move out of the black neighborhood and think it's going to be better in West Hollywood. You don't need a handout to move.
You got it. You got it.
That reparations they're talking about is getting money to move out of the neighborhood.
Yes. Yes.
I spent all my time about getting economic development loans to build something. You don't get the money unless you're going to build.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The story is that people, and I'll use some groups, and you can take it one way or another. Indian people come from India, and within one generation, they own the local store.
Yeah.
In the second generation, they own the new hotel. The third generation, they own half the town.
Yes.
But they haven't moved.
Well, Ed, I'm not going to keep you longer. I know you're a busy man. You probably got appointments this afternoon.
I do, with my family.
Pleased and honored to have you, to be able to talk with you about your life and your aspirations, and to put you on my podcast. You've raised the bar for me. You know that.
Thank you. I'll have you on mine. You'll be on mine. You can be sure.
Oh, absolutely.
You'll be on mine, so we'll triple it. Okay?
Listen, thank you so much, Ed, for allowing me into your life and your achievements. And we're so very proud of you. I'm just proud to know you. And, of course, like you say, your family is just unique in itself. The people.
It is.
Thank you, Dr. Blakely, for sharing your life with us. Your contribution to the planet is immeasurable. Because of your work, cities and countries will be forever changed for the better. Thank you for supporting our podcast and thank you for listening.